Bride of Frankenstein.
Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's modern-day Prometheus myth, has become an iconic piece of sci-fi horror. The 1931 film version has gone on to become a classic horror film. Now, I think Frankenstein is a good movie, but the best movie about the Frankenstein myth is the follow-up to the 1931 film, The Bride of Frankenstein. Now, with Bride, we have a weird and surprisingly funny film about monsters, sex, and science run amok. Now, how does the film accomplish all these things? Well, give me just a few minutes of your time, and let's go back and take a closer look at The Bride of Frankenstein. I think at the heart of the Frankenstein story is the pursuit of knowledge. Dr. Frankenstein attempts to surge beyond the accepted limits and access the secret of life. But in his quest for knowledge, the scientist has perverted nature and created a monster. Now, even though Frankenstein is a monster, this film asks its audience to sympathize with this creature. In Bride, the monster is an outcast, and many of the scenes in the film are built around getting the audience to identify with the creature's loneliness. In one scene, the monster seeks refuge in the home of a lonely blind man. Now, the monster and the blind man quickly become friends, and we even feel saddened when a group of villagers breaks in and forces the monster to flee. In another scene, the film deliberately references images from Christianity as the monster is hunted down, beaten, and symbolically crucified by an angry mob. This is one of many Christ and crucifixion references that occur throughout the film. But the hunting and persecution of the Frankenstein monster become a metaphor for how we treat those who are different or deviant in our society. So Frankenstein is different, and he may even be a monster, but he's not evil.
There's nobody at home.
Let me in, my good woman. I know the young Baron Frankenstein is at home.
He's sick. He's in his bed, where all decent folks should be at this time of night.
Tell him that Dr. Pretorius is here on a secret matter of grave importance and must see him alone tonight.
I think one thing that really makes The Bride of Frankenstein fun is the character of Dr. Pretorius. Now, there are many film historians who see kind of a gay subtext with this film, and they build their case around the character of Dr. Pretorius. Now, the film's director, James Whale, was an openly gay man, and perhaps he identified with the monster from this perspective. If this idea is true, then Pretorius' relationship with Frankenstein becomes even more complex. Let's think about this. When Pretorius enters the film, he's described by one character as a, quote, queer-looking fellow. Pretorius goes on to enter the bedchamber of Victor and his wife on their wedding night in the hopes of getting Victor Frankenstein to collaborate with him. Now, the famous film historian Victor Russo even went as far to call Pretorius a gay Mephistopheles. He's a figure of seduction and temptation, who even goes as far to pull Victor Frankenstein away from his bride to engage in the unnatural act of creating non-procreative life. It should also be noted Pretorius' reaction to Frankenstein. Now, when other people see the monster, they scream or react violently. But when Pretorius finally meets the creature, his reaction is not one of fear, but of mutual respect. Could it be that Pretorius recognizes the monster? Could it be that Pretorius recognizes him as a fellow monster and outsider? Now, these various interpretations allow us to see the film in a different light. More specifically, we can look at Bride as perhaps an elaborate homosexual joke on heterosexual communities, or as a satire on the ultimate heterosexual tradition, marriage. So in contradiction to the so-called laws of natural reproduction, it is not a man and a woman, but a partnership between two men that has created life.
In 1931, the world was horrified by the motion picture Frankenstein. In 1935, horror turned to terror with The Bride of Frankenstein. In 1990, the makers of Basket Case and Brain Damage bring you...
Want a date?
Frankenhooker.
The influence of Bride of Frankenstein can be seen throughout the genres of horror and comedy. Perhaps because now you recognize how silly the idea is of a group of men who are trying to create the perfect woman. The film Bride of Reanimator is the sequel to the 80s cult classic and sees a mad scientist trying to create the perfect female by bringing a dead woman back to life as a zombie. The 80s comedy Weird Science deals with a pair of teenage boys who create the perfect girl out of a Barbie doll. But a film that is a must for any Frankenstein fan is the movie called Gods and Monsters. Gods and Monsters is a smart and funny film about the making of the Bride of Frankenstein, and is filled with several references to knowledge, religion, and sexuality, and other themes that run throughout the Frankenstein story. It's a really good film that's worth a watch. I know that Bride of Frankenstein came out almost 80 years ago when it's a old black and white movie, but I feel it's a really entertaining, engaging movie that's worth seeking out. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to my channel and post comments below. Thank you.